Hello and welcome to the Cardboard Dungeons X-Wing ship reviews. My name is Pat, and in this video I am looking at the Alpha Class Star Wing expansion for X-Wing. Now this ship is better known as the Gunboat or the Assault Gunboat. As far as I know, it originated way back in the 1990s in a series of PC games that began with X-Wing and then was expanded with TIE Fighter and X-Wing versus TIE Fighter. You got to pilot these ships as well as fight against them. And what the Star Wing is a small base ordnance carrier heavy weapons platform. So it's loaded down with cannons and it has ordnance tubes, and it is just meant to fire the biggest weapons and cause the most damage. Now, interestingly, for X-Wing, this is the first Imperial small ship in the game that is not some form of a TIE class starfighter. So that in itself is interesting. We finally have a ship that has a unique profile. I think this is very cool looking. It looks kind of like the Lambda class shuttle with the wings and the big tail fin, but it's much smaller and it's much more dangerous looking. I mean, you can see that this thing is bristling with weapons. It is, I have to admit, a little smaller than I thought. I didn't have a very good size image in my head, because the only time I've really ever interacted with these things was in those old PC games. I played quite a bit of X-Wing and TIE Fighter back in the day, because yes, I am old. It is quite a bit smaller. It barely extends over the sides of a small base. It doesn't extend at all forward or to the back of the base. Now, before we start, I want to go over a couple of new mechanics in the game that this expansion brings. So I'm going to show the reference card for these. The first is jam tokens. So this expansion has a way to deal a jam token to a ship. And if a ship has both a jam token and a focus, evade, or target lock, remove the jam token, and then that ship chooses and removes one of those tokens. And a ship is considered jammed if it has a jam token. So really, if you put a jam token on a ship that doesn't have any of those tokens, basically you're forcing it to use the action to gain one of those tokens, or gain a token through whatever means it would be assigned such a token, and then immediately remove it along with the jam token. So a pretty nice debuff that you can put on enemy ships. And next we have a brand new action to the game. This is always exciting when we get new actions. This is called Reload, and in order to perform a reload action, you first choose any number of equipped discarded missile or torpedo upgrade cards and flip them face up, then assign the ship a weapons disabled token. So we now have a way in the game to get torpedoes and missiles back after they've been used. It does cost a weapons disabled token, and that of course means that they cannot perform attacks, and at the end phase all weapons disabled tokens are discarded. Okay, so moving into the maneuver options for the Alpha Class Star Wing. Now this is a SLAM ship, the first ship with SLAM for the Imperials. So looking at the dial, keep that in mind. They're not going to give the turnaround maneuvers, the K-turns, Segnor's loops, or Talon rolls to a ship capable of slamming, because the repositioning ability with that action is just too crazy. So keep in mind that slam, I'll talk about it when we get into the action bar, but it is a way to make two maneuvers in a row. So the ship can turn around by performing a turn maneuver and then slamming into another turn maneuver to do a big sort of a U-turn. So not the best maybe way to turn around, but it does have that. So it's got straight and banks at speed 1. It's got every standard speed 2 and speed 3 maneuver, and then it can go speed 4 straight, but it is red. Pretty good dial for a SLAM capable ship. Comparable to the K-Wing, although the K-Wing's not capable of going past speed 3 at all. So a little faster, but it will cause you stress. All right, now moving on to the stat line for this ship. Attack value of 2, 2 agility, 4 hull, and 3 shields. Down in the action bar, we have focus, target lock, slam, and reload. And like I said, slam, if you're not familiar with it, we've only seen it one time before in the game, in the K-Wing expansion. You spend an action after executing your maneuver, and you may execute another maneuver of the same speed as the one that you just completed. So for example, if you make a speed 3 bank, you can slam into a speed 3 turn, or a speed 3 straight, or another speed 3 bank. Gives the ships amazing speed. They can go faster, farther than any other ships in the game, because 2 speed 3 maneuvers is going to take you a greater distance than even a speed 5 straight, which is the longest standard maneuver in the game. Also lets you reposition all over the place, do a U-turn as I previously mentioned by doing 2 turns in a row, get out of harm's way. You can put the ship all over the board with slam actions. Now down on the upgrade bar, these ships start out, and we'll see later in the upgrade cards for the ship, there are ways to gain more upgrade icons, because what's on the bar is just 1 torpedo and 1 missile slot, which seems really low for a ship that is touted as this monster ordnance carrier. All right, now jumping into the pilots. The top pilot, Major Vinder, 7 pilot skill, 26 points, can take an elite upgrade as well. His ability says, when defending, if you have a weapons disabled token, roll 1 additional defense die. So not bad. This ship, of course, has 2 ways to get weapons disabled. I didn't mention this before when I was talking about slam, but making a slam action does also give your ship a weapons disabled token. So you can take a slam action, you can reload. Both of those actions give weapons disabled. You can have 2 weapons disabled tokens. Doesn't make a difference. They go away in the end phase no matter how many you have. For a ship that has 2 different ways to get weapons disabled tokens, this is a pretty good ability. Gives you extra defense when you are unable to make an attack. So that's pretty cool, actually. If you want to run for a round and reload your weapons, you can slam away. Use a reload action with one of the upgrade cards we're going to see that will let you use another action after taking a slam action. And then you have 3 defense dice base against any attacks from any ships that are following you. All right, next up we have Lieutenant Karsabi, pilot skill of 5, 24 points, can also take an elite upgrade. When you receive a weapons disabled token, if you are not stressed, you may receive 1 stress token to remove it. So another ability based around the weapons disabled tokens, this pilot can simply take stress to get rid of that weapons disabled completely, and then you are able to make attacks in the combat phase. So that's pretty cool as well. All right, next we got the first non-unique pilot, Row Squadron Veteran, pilot skill of 4, 21 points, and as usual when we see the word veteran in a pilot title, capable of taking an elite upgrade. And finally, new squadron pilot. Pilot skill of 2 and 18 points. No elite upgrade for this one, but man, 18 points for a ship with 7 health. Slam and reload. Man, I think there's a lot of possibilities for this pilot right here. Just looking at it, for 21 points, you can put a cruise missile on there. 22 points, you can put a harpoon missile on there. You've got reload. I don't think you really need much else. That is super cheap to get a reusable missile boat onto the table in a squadron. You've got tons of points left over for other ships. So I think we'll be seeing probably some of this pilot with some ordnance loadouts and basically not much else, just to get a bare bones, stripped down, inexpensive ordnance carrier into Imperial squadrons. So very cool. Now let's move on to the upgrades. Most of these are new. There's just a couple of repeats, important repeats, but ones that we've seen before nonetheless. But we're going to start out with a brand new elite upgrade. Saturation Salvo costs 1 point and reads, after you perform an attack with a torpedo or missile secondary weapon that doesn't hit, each ship at range 1 of the defender with an agility value lower than the squad point cost of the torpedo or missile upgrade card must roll 1 attack die and suffer any damage or critical damage rolled. So that's pretty cool. For 1 point, there might be a place for this on this particular ship. It's death on squadrons, really. And all you need is a 4-point missile or torpedo, which is easy to do because harpoon missiles are 4 points. And it's gonna affect pretty much any other ship, because I don't think there's anything with an agility value of 4 in the game, right? I hope I'm not wrong. They wouldn't go there, would they? TIE Phantoms can get there, but they have to be cloaked, and that's not their agility value. I suppose something with stealth device could get to 4, right? So if a 3 agility ship has stealth device, that does raise their agility until they get hit. And there's probably some other effects in the game that increase agility. So if you have one of those, but that's, I think, an edge case. Stealth device we see a lot of, so it won't affect ships with stealth device. But ships with stealth device, except for Howl Runner, don't tend to fly in formation with other ships. Usually those are the lone wolf aces that are flying off by themselves. Okay, anyways, moving along. Cruise missiles. A missile upgrade we've seen before in the Skurg expansion recently, costing 3 points. It is a secondary weapon, requires a target lock, but does not spend the target lock to make the attack at range 2 to 3. It rolls 1 die, which seems horrible until you read that you may roll additional attack dice equal to the speed of the maneuver you executed this round to a max of 4 additional dice. So perform a speed 4 maneuver and you're rolling 5 attack dice. It can be kind of hard to set it up, but not impossible. But I do think, as many have pointed out online and in other places, that this was a great card, but then harpoon missiles came along in Guns for Hire and kind of replaced it with a static 4 attack dice regardless of how far you moved, and also the condition that comes along with harpoon missiles and all the other horrible things that it does. I think just outclasses cruise missiles for 1 additional point. But it's still a good card. Cruise missile alpha strikes are a very real thing in Imperial lists. Something to watch out for. If you see 3 TIE fighters loaded with these, you want to do everything in your power to not let them get off a 15 dice sequential attack on one of your ships, or that ship will just be gone. Next up, we have a brand new cannon, Jamming Beam, costing 1 point. As an attack, you can attack a ship at range 1 to 2, rolling 3 dice. If it hits, assign the defender a jam token, then cancel all dice results. It's interesting. I think it'll be interesting on ships that can make use of cannons in addition to their primary weapon attack, like the IG-2000s or TIE Defenders with the TIE D title. I think as an attack itself, giving up the ability to do damage, giving up an attack that doesn't do any damage at all to put a jam token on an enemy ship is super situational. Usually you want to go for the damage. But if you have a way to make a cannon attack in addition to making a primary weapon attack, this could be pretty good. So it joins some of the other 1-point cannons. And we're going to see a way in the upgrades to make use of those cheap cannons. And then we've got another new cannon. Linked Battery costs 2 points. It is small ship only and limited, so you can't put more of these on the same ship, more than one. Most ships in the game only have 1 cannon slot if they have one at all. But there are a couple that can have 2 cannon slots now. When attacking with a primary weapon or cannon secondary weapon, you may re-roll 1 die. So this is really cool for a couple of reasons. First of all, getting to re-roll a die is always good. Free re-rolls, right, that don't cost an action. It's great just for that. In fact, I could even see making a case for just putting this on a B-Wing and having it just affect its primary weapon attack. Then it doesn't necessarily have to take target locks. It can get a free reroll of 1 die, at least, and you can take focus actions and then have a reroll plus focus, which is always good. You might be asking yourself, why are there cannon upgrades in this expansion when it doesn't have a cannon slot? Well, we're going to answer that question for you with one of the titles here. So, but yeah, this is a good card. I think for 2 points, just getting rerolls added into your ship, as long as you have a cannon slot. There's a lot of ships in the game, small ships. You could even put this on like a M3A Interceptor with the heavy sick title and use it as their cannon slot and just get rerolls on their primary weapon. I'm not sure if that's great. I'm not sure if you want to do that instead of a Mangler cannon or another type of cannon, but rerolls are good. So any way you can get rerolls in the game, always something that you want to consider. All right, now we've got another copy of Advanced Slam. It's a modification. We've seen it before in the K-Wing expansion, of course. It costs 2 points, and after performing a slam action, as long as you didn't overlap an obstacle or another ship, you may perform a free action from those on your action bar. Now, this card has been errataed. Originally, it did not have that end bit about the action being on your action bar, so K-Wings could slam and then drop a bomb that required an action. No longer can do that. This version of Advanced Slam does have the rewording. The one that came with the K-Wing does not, but it is in the FAQ. It is tournament official now. The free action that you perform has to be one that's on your bar. So for the gunboat here, that means you can slam and reload, slam and target lock, or focus. It's a great card, and probably an auto-include if you are building out one of these ships with more than just a single missile for the cheapest configuration. All right, and now there are 2 titles for the Alpha Class Star Wing, starting with OS1 Arsenal loadout. This costs 2 points, and it gives your upgrade bar the torpedo and missile upgrade icons, which it already has, so now it will have 2 of each. You may perform attacks with torpedo and missile secondary weapons against ships you have locked, even while you have a weapons disabled token. So more missiles, more torpedoes. I'm not 100% sure that's a great thing on a ship that can reload, because how many points do you really want to spend on missiles and torpedoes? You could take extra munitions, of course, for one of your torpedo slots if you don't want to have to reload in order to get multiple attacks. But really, it seems like kind of a waste of icons. I would have rather seen it gain like a system slot or something that might be a little more useful, but that might have been broken in some way. So I don't think that that's super great, just gaining the icons. Being able to make ordnance attacks against target locked ships, even with weapons disabled, is pretty cool. But I don't think this is the best of these 2 titles. And lastly, the XG1 Assault configuration is the second title for the ship. Your upgrade bar gains 2 cannon upgrade icons, and you may perform attacks with cannon secondary weapons that cost 2 or fewer squad points, even while you have a weapons disabled token. And this costs 1 point. All right, so there's the cannon version of the Alpha Class Star Wing to go along with the missile and torpedo version. So this will give you 2 cannon slots. You can put a 1-point cannon on there, like the jamming beam, for example, and make attacks with that while you are weapons disabled. Or you can load up a mangler cannon or heavy laser cannon to beef up the attack of this ship. Now, one thing I haven't talked a whole lot about is that primary attack value of 2, which isn't great. But I think that if you're putting one of these ships on the table, you're not planning on normally attacking with just your primary weapon. You're going to be using cannons, or you're going to be firing missiles and torpedoes. So this, I think, is a really good title. Only 1 point. You can get cannons on the ship, and you can get even better, you can put a mangler or heavy laser cannon and linked batteries so that you can get those rerolls on your cannon. So that's very cool as well. I think this is by far the better of the 2 titles if you're going to run a title on it at all. Okay, so that is the Alpha Class Star Wing expansion for X-Wing. I think it's a really cool ship. There have been people waiting for this ship to come into the game for years now. People begging Fantasy Flight for it, and they waited until Wave 12. They put in ships from the old expanded universe now, I think it's called Legends, that I think a lot of people had never even heard of before they went to one of the most requested ships. So I'm not sure if Fantasy Flight was just expertly trolling its player base, or if there was another reason for keeping this ship out of the game for as long as they did. Maybe they just didn't have a good way to implement it into the game. Maybe they thought, well, the Imperials already have a couple of small-based ships that are bomber/ordnance carriers, and what can we do differently? So it took them a while to figure out reload action and slam action and things like that. I don't know, but it is finally in the game. I'm excited about it. I love this ship in those old PC games. I think it's great looking. I'm really happy that it's just not another TIE something. We've gotten so many of those in X-Wing, and like I said, all the small ships for the Empire are TIE something or other, and they all look like ties to varying degrees. I think only the TIE Defender really kind of stands out as having an interesting profile. Maybe the Interceptors, and of course the TIE Silencer now is cool looking as anything else, I think. But yeah, I think this is a good ship. I think it'll find its way into squadrons. I really like that lowest, that Pilot Skill 2 with just a single missile for super cheap points, 20, 21, 22 points. Don't put anything else on it, and just give your opponent something bigger and more deadly to focus on, and just let this ship get in and launch missiles and then shoot away with slam and reload. Take a couple rounds to reposition and come back and do it again. And I think that if they underestimate the threat posed by a cheap little ship that's capable of delivering a big ordnance punch and then zooming away and then coming back later when they have refocused on something else and probably are not in any position to try to deal with it. Or, I mean, really, it's win-win for you, because if they do reposition to try to deal with your 22-point gunboat coming back around for a follow-up strike, then whatever else you spent on the other 78 points in your squadron is going to be taking advantage of that and using the opening to hopefully do terrible things to your opponent's ships. So pretty great implementation, I think, of the Assault gunboat, which I think is what it's going to be called as far as I'm concerned, as long as I am playing X-Wing. But yeah, I like it a lot. It's a great expansion, lots of cool stuff in this expansion. I think linked batteries is really good on a few other ships in the game, B-Wings especially. I think we might see this, because you just don't see B-Wings carrying cannons a whole lot, but they do have a cannon slot. So a free reroll for B-Wings is interesting, and I don't know if it'll get B-Wings back into the game in a big way, but might be something worth considering with your Rebel squadrons now, just to play around with at least. All right, as always, thank you for watching the Cardboard Dungeons X-Wing ship reviews. I'll see you next time.